Welcome to the Ignition News, your unfiltered, uncensored source for the actual truth in what is happening in the United States of America and around the world. We are not bought by the billionaires. We are here to be your source of truth in a time where truth matters more than it ever has. Be sure to follow along with your favorite platform on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Substack. Let's get busy with the truth. Welcome to the Ignition News. Let's ignite. Well, welcome everyone to the Ignition News. Good morning. It is March 14th, 2026, which means, of course, for my fellow nerds, it is Pi Day, 314 day. Good to have you on the show for all the smart kids. I mean, by default, one would assume that you're smart because you're watching and listening to the Ignition News. I've generally found that stupid people don't listen to the show, and when they do, they're raging and commenting on the clips on YouTube. So I would just also like to say happy hello day to the people raging in the comments on YouTube. Why don't you use chat to go figure out what Pi Day is, 3.14, and we'll see you back on the next show. It's kind of, yeah. Today in 1879, the birth of Albert Einstein. Wonderful. We're talking about smart people. The death of Karl Marx. We're actually going to talk a little bit about Marxism today. This was the day in 1883 that the renowned philosopher died. He actually died in London. His analysis of class struggle and corporate and state power is a foundational text for structural power analysis, and it is a fundamental core of my cornerstone of neo-abolitionist liberationism, which, yeah. In 1964, they convicted Jack Ruby. A jury in Dallas found Jack Ruby guilty of the malice murder of Lee Harvey Oswald. Something happened in 1963 and the world's never been the same. Was it Kennedy? Lee Harvey Oswald? The Russians? What's going on? Ever since then, America... We started diving into the conspiracies. We stopped trusting each other. I mean, we stopped trusting each other a long time before that. It is Billy Crystal's birthday today. It is, Michael Caine's birthday today. Happy birthday, Michael Caine. And Quincy Jones, who's born in 1933. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Ignition News. I want to first start out by saying that I do need you to go ahead and follow us at theignition.news, where you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the places that you do. But the reason I say that is because the billionaires are increasingly censoring us. You will no doubt see what we are streaming on TikTok. I'm sure at any minute now that TikTok will either give me a warning, we'll have a banner displayed at the bottom basically saying, "Are you sure you should trust this guy with the beard? He looks like he's a communist." Anyways, good morning, everyone. It's so good to have you on the show. We have just 4 brief stories, and then we're going to talk about power struggle because that's where my head is at, and I hope your head is at there as well. The first one today, good morning. We're going to talk about the economy and the war. I talked about this a couple of times. But obviously, you've heard this well-cited figure about the war costing $1 billion per day. The reality is it's costing us about $55 billion per day, probably closer to something like $70 billion a day when you weigh in the total U.S. economic impact of that. How do we get to that? Well, quite simply, do you remember when Pam Bondi said, the Dow is at $50,000? That was February 11th. And since then, the Dow Jones has dropped over 3,600 points. That market valuation, $1.72 trillion, has been eviscerated from the United States economy. That's just one market and one country. Of course, this cascades across the entire planet. When we really start to think about the impact, perhaps $70 billion per day, perhaps that is conservative. It could easily be double that. But even the $1 billion per day operational tactical cost of the war is itself astonishing. And more we're seeing operational failures in the field. This is difficult to talk about because I have nothing but respect for brave men and women who choose to stand up and put the uniform on and represent their country. But when they are led by operational incompetence, bad things happen. Of course, we see the tragic flight failure of the KC-135. It appears that KC-135 had a mid-air collision with another KC-135, which is probably also permanently, if not seriously damaged. Of course, that says nothing about the fact that we lost 6 service members in an absolute tragedy. And I thought we were done with having Americans die over the skies of Iraq. But unfortunately, that KC-135 proves that is not the case. And now I'm starting to have serious questions about not just the invalid reasons that we're going to war, but now we're seeing in real time the operational incompetence of the leadership. And the leadership's operational incompetence causes us to fail to hold people accountable or to fail to give them the proper training that they need, which is necessary, by the way. I'm old, I have gray beards, but we have to remember a lot of these people are just very young. It's their first, they're getting into their first years of life. They join the military because they come from a place, maybe they can't afford to go to college. They have the promise of joining the military, serving their country, believing in their country. And then Pete Hegseth hollowed out the very best leaders of the military, the leaders who would, of course, maybe say, the way we're operating in the skies of Orion is very dangerous. And let me point out something that maybe no one else is willing to point out. Perhaps these 2 planes crashed over the skies of Iraq because the Iranians have been successful in absolutely destroying our bases. We're too proud as a people sometimes to understand. We're too proud to admit that maybe we're getting our asses handed to us again in the desert. We're too proud. Maybe 2 planes crashed in the sky because a $20,000 drone blew up a $1 billion radar. Maybe we're endangering the lives of these young men and women because we've been running a playbook in the Middle East that's 35 years old, almost 40 years old, operating these giant expensive missiles, these antiquated planes. From the first Iraq war to the second, we almost halved the number of military equipments and less, or almost cut by 1/3, the number of joint allies engaged in the invasion of Iraq. The second Iraq war, we did it again. And now, once again, we've cut it down to nearly 1/3, 300 some planes operational in the sky. I don't really think that we have combat and operational allies. The wars in the Middle East have simply demonstrated the downfall of the American imperial empire. Well, yet we spend $1 trillion a year on the military, and we are getting our ass handed to us by a country who we've put economic sanctions on, who we've cut off from the world in technology, who we've cut off and basically sent into the hands of China and Russia. And now Russia is giving them intelligence. Think about this loop for a second. I got on my rant, but it's important. Think about this loop for a second. We do not have the equipment to go up against these drones. So who do we go to? We go to Ukraine, who we've been basically choking off military aid, but they've been developing drones. They have 500 drone factories in Ukraine now. 500 drone factories in Ukraine. They've learned how to revolutionize their warfare out of necessity. You would have thought someone at the Pentagon would have realized the very first time I saw a video of a drone in Ukraine, I said to myself, holy shit. First of all, I never want one of my children to go into that kind of thing, to have to be standing around 1 second, then you hear what sounds like a bee in your left ear, and then you're gone because of a drone. It started out as little DJI Phantom drones with grenades attached to them on basically fishing wire. And now this advanced technology. But somehow we were just like, let's keep building the $28 million tubes with rocket fuel in them. Let's keep doing that. Forget about the drones. Nah. So we failed to adapt to this technology. So now we have to go to Ukraine to get the technology, which they are giving us, which is kind of interesting considering the fact that J.D. Vance basically forced Zelensky to apologize, to say thank you in the White House. Do you remember this? You didn't say thank you. Well, now who has to say thank you? Maybe J.D. fucking Vance should go to Ukraine and get on his fucking knees and say thank you to Zelensky and his 500 drone factories. because those things are saving the lives of your brothers and your sisters. But in the circle, let's continue the circle. So we go and we take drones away from Ukraine, which they're giving us, fortunately. We close off the Straits of Hormuz, cut off the global oil supply. And so what does the president do? He says, hey, Russia, you can sell oil now. Russia has been under immense sanctions for some time now. So then Russia starts selling oil again. The single biggest tool we had in the destruction and the fall of the Russian Empire was cutting off their oil sales. It's really their two exports are war and oil. And we cut off the vast majority of their oil exports, and then we utilized Ukraine to significantly weaken their military capacity for pennies on the dollar. But then Trump says, oh, you know what? You guys can start selling oil. Why? Because he's selfish, and he doesn't want to admit that he fucked up. Instead of admitting that he fucked up and just leaving Iran right now, you're going to start letting Russia sell oil. So what does Russia do? Trillions of dollars in oil sales now. Trillions of dollars. And what do? Remember, they have two exports, really. Oil and war. So now Russia uses your expensive oil dollars to build up their military capacity. And who do they attack? Ukraine, oil, Russia, Ukraine. We have strengthened Russia by our economic failure in the desert. We have taken advantage of Zelensky and the hundreds of thousands of dead Ukrainian men and women. And now we have strengthened the military power of Russia, who, by the way, is giving Iran intelligence about where to attack us. And then the cycle completes. Iranians strike their drones strike our radar facilities, and 2 planes crash over the sky. It's a circle of incompetence. And the cycle is doing many things. First of all, it's costing us $1.72 trillion. That's the beginning. That money's gone. Evaporated from your retirement, from your grandpa's retirement, from your mom and dad's retirement. Not that I care about boomers retiring. No offense to the boomers who watch the show. The good boomers watch the show, okay? Eviscerating the global economy. Our military bases are getting fucking plowed right now. So bad that satellite companies are not releasing the imagery. The country of Israel is actively suppressing video of the bombardments of Tel Aviv. It's getting fucking hammered right now. Why? Well, who owns TikTok? Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison contributes massively to the Friends of IDF. He's one of the biggest contributors to the Friends of the IDF. He's not going to want you to see that Tel Aviv's getting pounded right now. And so you don't see it on TikTok. You just don't see it. And when you do, here's the most pernicious part. The United States military, breaking news right now, has launched a new ship in the war in Iran, a brand new type of ship. The United States censorship. But the war is not with the Iranians. The United States censorship, the USS censorship, is actively attacking you. It is blinding you from information you need to know to understand why your brothers and sisters are dying in the desert. Why billion-dollar radars are getting blown up by $20,000 drones. These drones, have you seen them? These Iranian drones? It's almost comical. They sound like fucking toy airplanes in the sky. What the fuck? Have you not been paying attention? Where is this $1 trillion going? Where's the $1 trillion a year going? What are we spending it on? We don't know. Why? The military has failed every audit it's ever had. The Pentagon has failed every audit. And this president, this vice president, the secretary of state have been dog-walked into a war by Benjamin Netanyahu, who is, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Benjamin Netanyahu is basically never on the ground anymore, for the best that we can tell. He left his people, he got in the wings of Zion, and first fled to Germany. While the children in his country, I mean, we know he doesn't care about children. He's been in the sky in a plane. Why? I would venture to guess he spends more time in a plane in the sky than he does on the ground. He fled his own country. Just waiting for the warning. The national average gallon of gas went from $2.98 to $3.32. It's going to hit $4. Mark my words. By the midsummer, the average price of gasoline, $7 a gallon. Inflation, which we have been battling with the brute force of the American working class, is going to go tick back up to 3%. Mortgage rates, 5.99% before the war. They are 6.29%. The first 100 hours of the war cost $3.7 billion. That's gone forever. And now the last part. That brand new military ship that the United States deployed, the USS Censorship, it is steaming towards Iran. And guess what is on board the USS Censorship? This is true. 5,000 United States Marines are heading towards the Middle East. The day after the president said that the conflict was done, we are sending as many as 5,000 Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit. That is not a paperwork force. That is not an operational administrative force. That is an expeditionary force. That is a landing force. That is boots on the ground. George Bush prevented the military from allowing photographers to take photographs of coffins coming home from Iraq because he knew that the Americans beginning to see rows and rows of flag-draped coffins in addition to their rapidly destroyed economy would begin to question this hegemony. Scott Bessent said recently that there is no end to the amount of money that the United States is willing to invest in this war. But yet, we are running out of bombs. The president said that we have a virtually unlimited supply of weapons. Tomahawk missiles cost $3.6 million each. We have purchased 322 of them in the last 5 years. Only 96 THAAD missiles get built every single year. A retired admiral from the Navy said, "We did marginal to minimal purchases every year, and we hoped we didn't get caught out in the open, and we have been caught out in the open." While Russia and China continue to build their stockpiles. If China were to invade Taiwan, we would have almost no way to stop that from happening. And the final story on the Ignition News, first of all, let me take a pause. I can see a lot of you found value in the show today. Thank you. I'm deeply appreciative of that. While we are still here and while the media is not censoring us, I do need to ask you quickly before I get to the last story to go find us on The Ignition News. TheIgnition.news. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Substack. It's important that we find each other. The President of the United States is building a bunker. This has been rumored to be true before, but now we know that they are actually building underneath the White House, as early as August, an operational facility to be available by July 2028, 6 months before the president's term ends. They are building a 33,000 square foot underground, what they call visitor screening area. A 33,000 square foot visitor screening area. Think about that for a second. Let's ask, give me some ideas of how buildings that are 33,000 square feet. That is 3/4 of an acre or 7 NBA basketball courts. That is a medium-sized Best Buy. That is a Sprouts Farmers Market, a Walgreens flagship store. That is a distribution warehouse with 10 loading docks. That is about the size of a YMCA or a small elementary school. They are building what they are calling a 33,000 square foot visitor center underground the ballroom. And they're going to have it ready 6 months before the president's term is over. What else do you need to know? How else can this be made clear to you? When empires fall, I think his supporters believe that he cares about the economy, that he cares that somehow his view of economic strength is good. I think they actually still believe that. But when an empire fails, they don't care about the economy. They don't care about the cost of eggs. They have all the control, all the mechanisms, levers, all the angles of control. The real question now, for everybody who says, why are they hiring 20,000 ICE agents? Well, that's because apparently they're sending the military all over the planet on these wars of aggression. The president always wanted to use the military, but guess what? He can't use the military because he's sending 5,000 Marines to Iran. Now everything's starting to come into focus, isn't it? 20,000 ICE agents seizing ballots in Georgia, a bunker underneath the White House. The United States has launched a brand new military ship, the United States Censorship, and it is steaming right towards you. Let us close with an educational segment. What is hegemony? I want to take a few minutes to talk about something that's not the headlines. The word is hegemony. Hegemony. It sounds like an academic word, yes? It sounds like something a professor or some old man with a beautiful beard would talk about. Hegemony is dominance. Not the kind of dominance that you can see, not the kind of like cop rolling down a street with a baton. Hegemony is the kind of dominance that works because most people do not even realize it's happening. It's the power to set the rules of the game, to define what is normal, to shape what people believe is impossible. Hegemony is the structure of dominant power. It doesn't win through force, military force, police force. It wins by being the system. When you hear someone say it's a free market, like that's gravity somehow, the market is dictated by its own sentiments. Markets are not free. They are constructed, they are built, they are maintained by war machines, as you're seeing now. When you hear someone say, we're doing this for the other countries, as the president said about Iran, you have to ask, then why all of the destruction? Italian philosopher Antonio Gramsci was writing from a prison cell under Mussolini in the 1930s, and he gave us the most useful framework for understanding this. He said that the ruling class does not just dominate through force, it dominates through what he called cultural hegemony, the ability to make its own interests appear to be in the common interests of everyone. The powerful do not just control the army. They control the story. They control what is counted as legitimate. They control the apps, what you see, what you hear, what you believe. They create bots to generate informed and manufactured consent. This is hegemony. It is a force. And right now, in the context of war, we are watching American cultural hegemony in action. The United States does not just protect force in the Middle East, it protects a story, the idea that we are the expansive, unstoppable empire. And for decades, that story has worked well enough to keep most Americans either on board or at least not looking at the news. So you learned about hegemony. I want you to learn about us and a word, a phrase, our action and rally cry. Counter-hegemony. Counter-hegemony is the organized effort to challenge, disrupt, and ultimately replace the dominant story with a truer one. So let me be very precise here. Counter-hegemony is not just protest. It is not just saying that the powerful people are bad. You can do that every single day, all day long, and that doesn't change a fucking thing. Counter-hegemony is the work of building coalition. The idea of waking up your neighbors, the idea of waking yourself up, and the idea to begin to understand that you have the common power to push back. When workers in the early 20th century fought for an 8-hour workday, the dominant story that was told to them was that this was dangerous, it was an attack on American freedom, it would destroy the economy. That sounds familiar, yes? They called it socialism. The dominant story of segregation was that agitation, outside interference. These were threats to order, tradition. The people who fought in the civil rights, they did not just protest. They fundamentally changed the hegemony. We have to start waking each other up. All of the signs are pointing to one thing. We stand together on a cliff. And if we do not realize our own radical counter-hegemony, either one of two things will happen. As more of us are pushed towards the cliff, the powerful will either begin to push us off to make more room for themselves, or we, understanding that we are the collective force of we, will push back. Because what you begin to realize is that it's 350 million of us. It is about 900 billionaires. Hegemony, counter-hegemony. Which sounds more powerful to you? The next time someone tells you that we cannot afford to provide medical care for the poor or to house everyone, remind them that we have found a way to scrap together $1.72 trillion to bomb Iran. And stop believing it is impossible. Stop believing we can't do this. Stop believing we are not our own force. And stop believing that we cannot be this force of counter-hegemony. That's why you follow the Ignition News. Updates, information, education. Hegemony is the dominant power speaking to you. It is the dominant story telling you what it is and protecting itself. And now you have a word for it. And that means you have already started fighting back. That's the show, everybody. Thank you for following us here on the Ignition News. Reminder to follow us on all of your favorite platforms. We're at theignitionnews.com. That's going to be the show, everybody. Have a great day. Oh, damn. Got any comments over on YouTube? Good show, everybody. Thank you. Lots of good folks in here. Looks like we're the moderators working overtime. Did I miss that? Were you guys just going nuts?